Change only the time. It's your point. This is the weeping.
People of Bacolod and Negros Occidental, welcome to the Grand Finals of idebate Challenge 2006. And now, only two schools remain. We have St. Scholastica's Academy versus University of St. LaSalle Integrated School. And our topic for this Grand Finals is should the environment give way to economic development. And now, let me introduce to you the speakers for both contending teams tonight. First, for St. Scholastica's Academy, we have Kia Gargantiel, we have Anne-Marie Lacson, and we have Ms. Victoria Dreyfus. But of course, only two debaters will be seeing action for tonight. And St. Scholastica's Academy is being coached by Ms. Connie Vilesa. And for University of St. LaSalle, we have three speakers. We have Mr. Gabriel Paulo Lao, or known by his classmates as Chino. And we have Yones Irene Di Castro, and the third member is Ms. Jovan Tamparon. And University of St. LaSalle is being coached by Ms. Leilani Reforma. And now, since this is the Grand Finals, I will not be moderating tonight. I'll just be acting as your host. And we have invited a very special moderator for tonight. He is a national debating champion. He has won as Best Debater and Best Speaker during the PRISA National Debate Finals, where he represented UNOR, and of course he was my teammate in that debate when we vested many schools and eventually winning the national finals. And when idebate returns, we will have the explosion of arguments between our two contending teams. This is the idebate Challenge 2000. This is idebate Challenge 2006, and we are already in our grand finals, and only two schools remain. We have St. Scholastica's Academy, and we have University of St. LaSalle, Bacolod. And I will now turn you over to Attorney Dennis Cortez for the opening arguments of our speakers, four speakers tonight. And for the opening arguments, they will each be given 2 minutes to make their opening arguments. Attorney Cortez.
Welcome and good evening once again to the Grand Finals of the idebate Challenge 2006. The opening arguments, of course, will follow a sequence when it comes to the presentation of the opening arguments. The first affirmative speaker will be, of course, the first to present her opening arguments. Kia, would you please get on with the debate?
So first of all, I would like to set the definition of economic development. Economic development, according to the book Economics for the Filipinos 2002 edition by Maria Teresa Nera Lauron, would mean the process of production, distribution, and consumption. It would also mean providing jobs and simply giving all of the world's citizens a better quality of life for the common good of all. Most of us would wonder whether it is possible to develop or to achieve a certain level of development without destroying the environment. Now, it is apparent that it is possible to develop without destroying the environment as long as there is responsible and accountable management in handling the resources. Because the resources, if well managed, are actually the keys in producing wealth, which is essential for poverty eradication. When we develop something in one place, something also has to give way. This is because we cannot create something out of nothing. So while we are creating something in one place, we have to sacrifice somewhere else to get the raw materials. And where do we get these raw materials? Naturally, from the environment. In cutting trees, mining, and putting up those infrastructures and power plants used for economic development, the government actually have regulations, permits, inspections, monitorings, and enforcements that are being conducted before one of these projects could even be put up. Making the transition to sustainable development means learning to invest some of the proceeds of our accelerating economic development in maintaining the environmental conditions for its continuation. Now, the materials that we use to manufacture our basic needs, such as food, water, clothing, and shelter, are actually derived from the environment. So in one way or another, environment really has to give way to economic development, especially as of the present situation.
Yes, moderator, I'm entitled to ask you at least one question. And my question goes this way. You mentioned the need to make sacrifices for the sake of economic development. Are there limits to the sacrifices one can afford to make?
Of course there are limits to sacrifices, especially from the environment. Because first of all, we have that extent of economic development. And the government is providing the regulations, permits, inspections, enforcements, and monitorings before you can actually make the environment give way to your economic development.
So in other words, you're saying if these limits are reached, then it is economic progress which will give way?
Pardon?
If these limits are reached, in other words, you said there are limits to the sacrifices one has to make. If these limits are reached, will you still push through with your economic progress or not?
Well, of course, yes.
In other words, whatever the sacrifice may be, it is the sacrifices which will have to give way to economic progress. That is your position. Okay. So, after the opening arguments of our first affirmative speaker, we will now go to the opening arguments of the first negative speaker, Chino Lao of Las Taon.
Thank you. Good evening. The environment should not give way to economic development. This does not go to say that we are opposed to economic development. Rather, we support sustainable or responsible development that takes into consideration environmental sustainability in the process of developing. What we are opposed to is development that sacrifices the environment or is in the process that gives way to the environment. Now, this practice of letting the environment give way into economic development has resulted to catastrophes. Just last week, the mudslide in Albay has caused the deaths of hundreds. If you can recall, the landslide in Leyte that wiped out the entire town of San Bernardino. And even in our very own Negros, the forest cover has diminished to 4% from original 98%. Now, 10 of the hottest recorded years in history were in the past 14 years, with 2005 being the hottest year in recorded history. Now, because the evidence of catastrophes are very clear and evident, environmental international institutions, the UN, such as the UN, have put in place laws such as the World Charter on Nature under General Principle number 7, which says, in the planning and implementation of social and economic development activities, due account shall be taken to the fact that the conservation of nature is an integral part of these activities. Furthermore, what we have now is comfort at the expense of nature and of the future. Now, this is the model of development that must change. We must possess a model of development that takes into consideration environmental sustainability for the future, because we are not trying to develop ourselves just for today, but rather for the future.
Okay. Chino, do you conceive of any sacrifice of the environment which might qualify as reasonable for the sake of economic progress?
Now, when you sacrifice the environment for economic progress, now it could be classified as, if you take into consideration the environmental effects, then you could no longer consider it as giving way, because you have placed an equal amount of importance on the environmental effects of such undertaking.
Do you not consider that there might be extent as to the damage that can be done to the environment, and that certain damages we can well afford them for the sake of economic progress? Or is your position an absolute one? No sacrifices whatsoever of the environment must must be
Well, we
made.
can never take an absolute point of view here because obviously something has to give way in eventuality. But if you consider it as something that is, if you consider the potential effects of the environment and if you weigh it, then obviously it no longer becomes sacrifice, but it becomes an assessment. And if you properly assess it, there will be ways to minimize the sacrifices.
Okay, so that is the position of the first negative speaker. We now go to the second affirmative speaker, Anne-Marie Lacson of St. Scholastica.
I'd like to invite you to look at everything around you. Everything from your clothes to your shoes to every single thing in this building comes from the environment in one way or another. All of us here are human beings. We were not designed with claws or incisors, fur or shells to protect us from nature, but rather we were given knowledge. Natural resources mean nothing if they are not utilized, and it is because of our knowledge to utilize these resources that has kept us alive until today. Nowadays, with the ever-growing population, the environment has to give way to economic development simply because of the increasing demand for basic needs. Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs contends that as humans meet basic needs, they seek to satisfy successively a set of higher needs in a hierarchy. These higher needs are also called growth needs and are necessary for the fulfillment of a person. But before these higher needs can be satisfied, there is a set of fundamental needs called the physiological needs, which include breathing, food, water, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion. Half of the world's population, or 3 billion people, if simply put, survive on less than $2 a day, and 1 out of 3 of these people survives on less than $1. The situation has come to such a point that 1 billion out of these 3 billion are children, meaning 1 out of every 2 children in the world suffers from poverty. Economic development will provide a better life for the common good. The only way to satisfy the basic needs of the people is to continue developing the economy. It will not be able to provide these needs if it does not harness something from the environment. For example, one dam alone can provide 240,000 houses with electricity. And not only that, it provides the necessary water for drinking, industry, irrigation, fishing, and even recreation. This is proof that the benefits of economic development are truly great and indeed beneficial for the common good.
Okay. Anne-Marie, I take it that you are willing to inflict a certain amount of damage on the environment
Yes.
for the sake of economic progress.
Yes.
And it is your position that ultimately this will benefit the large majority of the people of the world.
Yes.
I am interested in finding out exactly at what point would you care to stop, if ever.
If this is already hurting the majority, because development is supposed to be for the common good. And when it is for, like, for example, corporations, they abuse their power, and it's no longer for the common good. It's for profit, and it's not development.
So, in other words, I take it that you are not really that gung-ho about damaging the environment absolutely.
Not absolutely, not
course.
completely.
Okay, so in that case, as long as the people are benefited,
Yes.
you are willing to inflict damage on the environment, but only up to
Yes.
a point. There is a limit.
Certain point where you draw the line, yes.
Okay. Okay, and so we go now to the second negative speaker, Yones Irene De Castro of Lasal.
First, we establish that we are not against economic development. In fact, we are for economic development in equal priority with environmental protection. There is a solution to poverty and unemployment through the integration of the economy and the environment simply because in the coming years, ecotourism will be the second largest industry. You mentioned that there's 3 billion people suffering from poverty. And with that, we should sacrifice the environment. But we also know that 1.5 billion people around the world suffer from lack of safe drinking water. If we sacrifice the little environment we have left, then what would happen with these people? Would their numbers increase? And 5 million deaths per year are contributed because of waterborne diseases. Imagine the rates and the sacrifice of the environment that you intend to propose. Also, there are disastrous effects caused by the imbalance of priorities. For example, the Union Carbide gas leak in Bhopal, which killed 4,000 deaths overnight. The Chernobyl explosion, which caused 150,000 deaths in a year. And the growing rate of cancer, vulnerability, and the genetic defects suffered by the Belarusian children up to now. Also, the presence of international laws which protect the government. Why should these international laws exist if the environment should just be sacrificed? The world by now already recognizes the need for environmental protection. Treaties such as the Kyoto Protocol, established in 1997, and the UN Declaration. They state that the responsibility given to the government should be observed when it comes to the sacrifice of the economy.
So much, Yones, of economic progress involves industrialization.
Yes.
And I think it cannot be denied that wherever industrialization occurs, there will be some amount of damage that will be inflicted on the environment. Now, I want really to know if the debaters here hold to absolutist positions. Is it your position that any damage to the environment, no matter how small, is in fact something you cannot agree with?
The principle of macroeconomics states that the damage in the environment is irreversible. There's the damage that you can repair and the damage that you cannot. We are talking about responsibly using the environment, which right now is not really the case.
Okay. What if the damage is repairable? Would you therefore allow economic progress to go?
Unless that is absolute, then what are our figures as of now?
So what is the answer?
Our figures as of now is that the environment depleting also affects the population.
Okay. So thank you for that. I will now turn you over to Attorney Ralph.
Thank you very much, ladies, and thank you very much, debaters, for the honorable contributors and just warming up. When we return, we will have the interpolation round for more and more explosive arguments between my two teams. I'm Attorney Ralph Sarmiento. You are watching the iDebate Challenge Grand Finals for the year 2006. And now we will have the interpolation round where each of the speakers are given 3 minutes each running time, that is to make or to question their opponents. And when they're making the questions as well as when they're answering, they're both given a maximum speaking time of only 30 seconds. May I now turn you over to Attorney Dennis Cortez, our moderator.
To open our interpolation round, we will have the first negative speaker, Chino Lau.
I would like to ask Kia. Kia, do you agree that the environment is a major source for economic development?
Yes.
Do you believe that one of the elements that drives economic development is the environment?
Yes, therefore it should give way.
Do you believe that there is a finite amount of environmental resources on Earth that eventually it can be used up?
Yes, that's why it needs to be utilized.
Okay, then. Well, since the source and drive for the economy is the environment, and as you have stated, it is limited, then letting it give way would also mean depleting it or destroying it, and that would essentially mean destroying the source where development thrives on, right?
Well, when we are saying economic development, back to definition, it is for the common good of all. Therefore, it has a limit. It has an extent. Because, of course, the environment is our source. We cannot completely destroy it because once we destroy it, what are our sources for the future?
Exactly. We cannot destroy it. We cannot give way because
No, what I was saying
where would
was
development thrive on if we destroy it?
destroy.
No, what I was saying,
Kia,
we cannot completely destroy it. That's why we need to somehow give it like 2 forests that are untouched.
Okay, next. Are you in agreement that our lives depend on the environment? I mean, we do breathe the oxygen from the environment, right?
Yes.
Well, do you believe that the purpose of economic development is to improve lives? Well then, since our lives depend on the environment and the goal of development is to improve lives, well, then wouldn't the giving way of the environment contradict the goals of economic development, since you are essentially destroying the structure that supports economic development?
Why would it contradict?
Oh, because you're destroying the environment, but on the other hand, your purpose is to improve lives, and the environment supports life. So you're
When you
destroying the
say-
support structure that supports life.
No, when you say economic development, it is for the common good of all, and we only use the environment if it is necessary. When we say you destroy the environment for profit, then that is not part of economic development.
Why is it not part of economic development?
Because
for profit.
profit is just for the minority of the people, for just a few people. But when you use the environment for necessity, it is for the majority of the people and for the common good of all.
Well then, like, how has the deforestation of the entire from 98% to 4%. How has that improved our lives?
Well, we have furniture.
Okay.
They did not deforest the forest just they want to cut down trees, but they used those trees, they converted it into something that is beneficial to us right now.
Well, then how would extinction be beneficial to us?
Extinction.
Yeah, how is extinction? Are you aware that the spotted deer is endangered because it lacks habitat?
Okay, that was a very interesting change. And we will now go to the first affirmative speaker to do the interpolation.
So my first question to Chino is, if the environment will not give way for economic development, what will give way?
No, there is a procedure for giving way. As we said, we are in support of sustainable development. It can give way, but if there are mitigation or protection purposes, then you can no longer consider it giving way. If you clear a place for a football stadium, but you surround it with trees,
what will give way if not environment? Because everything, we have raw materials. Raw materials come from the environment. So if the environment will not give way, we won't have raw materials. So where do you think will we get raw materials?
Obviously, I'm not opposed to the idea of giving way, but the idea of giving way is sacrificing, destroying. Then obviously something will have to give way, but not to the point of destruction. And when you say environment giving way,
it's economic development.
How can
because economic development, as I've said, is using the environment for the necessity. We only get from the environment if we need it.
Then are you telling me that we needed from 98% to 4%? Did we need 94% of the forest cover? Do we actually need it? Are we in that demand of wood? I thought concrete and steel was the trend now.
Again?
Concrete, steel. Never mind.
Well, do you get steel from forests?
No, but why did you have to clear the forest in the first place? I mean, you told me necessity. Did we have to clear 94%?
Well, you know, the clearing of 94% of the forest is not for economic development, all of it. Sometimes we have to have responsible and accountable management. So the clearing of the 94% of the forest, actually, some of the percent of it is irresponsibility.
How can it not contribute to economic development when its main purpose was to develop the economy? Put more wood into the economy so it can develop, so you can build buildings, right? How is that not economic development? You're telling me
we
that
need to cut wood for us to have furniture and etc. That the things that we derive
the
from
94%.
Now the next question is, don't you think that those that happened in Leyte and Albay are natural calamities and it is beyond economic development? It is beyond the control of economic development.
Well, I get that it rains, but I don't get why it had for mudslide because of illegal logging, of deforestation.
Illegal logging and deforestation, it's not part of economic development.
Okay, then deforestation, the cutting down of the trees.
For necessity.
No, because you're telling me that there were regulations, but if it was actually regulated, then why were there landslides? I mean, regulation is part of economic development.
Well, there is what we call the government provides, not really provides, but the government requires rehabilitation. It is because of people's irresponsibility that the forests have not been replaced.
Then the guidelines were not properly implemented.
That's right. That's not part of economic development because the people who are involved in economic development actually just use the environment for necessity.
But the government is for economic development, therefore a lapse in its implementation would mean a lapse in the implementation of economic development.
Okay, the interpolators are entitled to only 3 minutes.
Okay.
We now go to the second negative speaker, Jonas.
Okay. You agreed that the environment provides our needs.
Yes.
And you also agreed that the environment has finite resources. And you stated that Maslow's law states that our basic needs need to be met. Being aware that the resources are finite, what if it comes to the point that it depletes completely, that we have nothing to thrive on?
Well, there are regulations again, so it will never pretty much go to the point where we will have nothing to thrive on because there are such things as rehabilitation.
Well, 4% left. Does that ensure us that we still have something to thrive on in the coming years? Say 20 years from now. 20 years from now is not enough to grow trees. What will happen to those 4%? We can't export from other countries since we ourselves are the source of raw materials, right?
Well, that 4%, as what Kia said, from 98%, it came to a point like that because people were abusing it. Okay, there are such things as abuse. These are not for economic development. These are for profit.
Well, isn't profit part of economic development, since business, industry is also part of economy, and the primary purpose of industry is also for profit. Profit
Economic
for the people.
development is for the common good. Profit is for the few. When you abuse something, that is where it becomes not right.
Well, the people are also part of the economy.
And you're saying,
And you're saying that the destruction, including deforestation, which is part of the economy, depletes our resources. And you agree that
we needed it.
you didn't answer my question. What will we thrive on if the resources will run out in the coming years?
But they will never completely run out. Why? There is the rest of the world,
What's
and
your
there is
assurance
people
that
being
they will not run
assured. Well, first of all, in your first speech, you said that there are resources which can be restored.
I did not state that in my speech. I said
I
that
mean, when you were
resources are finite
answering.
and they are non-renewable. In
Yes,
fact,
but you
the-
answered attorney a while ago saying that there are such difference between environment which can be restored and which
I
cannot
said that
be
the basic
restored.
principle of macroeconomics states that the damage on the environment is irreversible.
But when you were answering this question, you said that it can be restored.
And a while
There
ago,
are some
thank you.
parts.
A while ago, I stated that 1.5 billion people suffer from the lack of safe drinking water. Now, if we give up the environment, say we use the body of water as a sewage, as a dump site for all the factories, what will happen to the water?
Well, there
resources
should
by
be
then?
proper management.
Where,
Right? This
aside from
water
our
needs to
water
be
resources,
treated.
where else can we throw our excess wastes?
We need to treat it. I mean, we need to find ways to solve it, to
Such
get rid
as?
of that problem. Alternatives, purifying water.
Such as, if you use purifying water, then that will make water costly. And that adds to poverty, because since then you have to buy water which is supposed to be free.
Okay, so the second affirmative speaker will now have a chance to interpolate. Anne-Marie?
Giannis, are you thankful that there is electricity?
Yes.
Do you know where the do you know that in Negros, the electricity in our homes is generated by fossil fuels?
No, there is a geothermal power plant.
Well, the geothermal power plant also, in addition to fossil fuels,
But
gets something
geothermal
from the
power
environment.
plant are renewable sources.
See, you said renewable sources. That's what I was meaning a while ago. But anyway, it's still getting something from the environment. How can you say that the geothermal power plant is a renewable
But the
source when
difference
you're
between the
forming
renewable
mining?
resources is that the fossil fuels actually emit more greenhouse gases. And right now, it's not really the case, since we are more prone to the usage of fossil fuels.
But with geothermal energy, the environment still gives way in some way.
In some way, but the definition of giving way, according to Encarta 2006, is sacrificing, surrendering, or acceding.
Exceeding.
Acceding.
Okay. Well, as what you said, geothermal environment. So you're saying that we should push for geothermal environment instead of fossil fuels.
Yes.
But geothermal energy still gets from the environment. I mean, the question is, should the environment give way to economic development? And even if it's renewable or non-renewable, it is still part of the environment.
So you're saying that the environment must sacrifice itself?
Not completely.
Well, to what extent can you say that it's not sacrificing itself?
When it becomes harmful to man. After all, you said if you
Harmful
are
to man,
pushing for
such
a
as
sustainable
greenhouse
development,
gases. Harmful to man, such as the probability that 5 years from now, Florida, New York, Miami will be flooded because of the continuous melting of the Arctic ice.
So you're saying people should just go back to primitive times and like forget all about this electricity?
No, it's not. It's about proper and responsible utilization of the environment.
And you're also pushing for that proper and
But it's not
responsible
stated.
utilization, but the fact that you utilize from the
It's
environment,
not stated in the
is getting
proposition.
something from it.
It is not stated in the proposition that there is a mutual exchange. In fact, the proposition states that the environment must surrender itself to the economy.
Well, since you used the term surrender, would you agree with me that surrendering is, for example, your cell phone rang in class, you surrender it to your teacher, right?
That's far from the analogy that we're
No, but
using.
still, surrendering is like taking hostage.
So by then your cell phone's gone, right? You won't be able to use it for a couple of weeks. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we're not able to use the environment, where will we thrive on?
Yeah, but again, I was saying surrendering is like taking hostage. When you take hostage something, you decide what to do with it, right? And you can decide, for example, if your hostage is a prisoner, to feed it.
You can decide to destroy the environment, and what will happen to you if you...
Well, the right thing to do is not to decide to destroy the environment, but to focus on renewable sources.
Who's deciding exactly?
Okay, sharp questions, keen answers, a very interesting exchange and impressive performance by all our debaters. And that ends our interpolation round. I now turn you over to Attorney Ralph.
Yes, you are indeed correct. I'm Attorney Ralph Sarmiento, and you are still watching iDebate, and we have now come to the last and concluding portion of our, which we call the free debate round, and this is the final leg of the competition, and this is the final chance of our debaters to convince our 4 judges who are on their TV screens who are watching this live, and one of our judges who is here on the set watching it live. And may I now turn you over to Attorney Cortez, our moderator.
Let's begin the free debate round by asking who would like to go first. Okay, Kia.
Okay, we have what we call our environmental Kuznets curve. Now, it's an inverted U shape, and it says that in the beginning of economic development, little weight is given to environmental concerns, raising pollution along with industrialization. Now, after a threshold, when basic physical needs are met, such as food, water, clothing, and shelter, interest in a clean environment rises, reversing the trend. That's why if you're saying that we have deforestation, we have greenhouse effects, we have those fossil fuels that create those greenhouse
Kia,
gases.
your 30 seconds are up.
Reversing the trend. How can you reverse when one animal is extinct? How do you reverse the
Extinction
effects?
is irreversible.
Exactly. So if you
I
give
cannot
up the
magic those animals that have gone extinct.
Yeah, and what was the basis of extinction to begin with? It's because people had no idea that what they were hunting down were animals that were becoming extinct.
In the
Now,
pursuit
because
of economic development.
economic development, people were able to find ways to create canned goods,
Exactly.
to farm pigs, to farm other animals.
Exactly. If it's used already in illegal and it's not enough for economic development, then why should the government not do something about it, such as environmental protectionism, since in the first place it's for the economy, right?
The government is doing something right now. That's why the government now has these suggestions
So
that
it's
they
not
will use
completely giving
geothermal
way.
power plants and indigenous ways on giving us electricity rather than using fossil fuels. That's why they are promoting ethanol in replacement for fuels. They are promoting those indigenous ways such as geothermal power plants.
Well,
We have
I don't know that all these
hydroelectric
things come from
One
the
speaker at a
environment.
time so that this will not degenerate into a wrangling match. Let's hear your response to that.
Yeah, you cite everything that you have cited has so far been completely idealist. The government has done this, the government has done this. But in reality, what is actually happening? I mean, are they actually implementing? There's the Clean Air Act, but sugarcane fields are still being burnt for cheaper produce. That's still economic development.
Response?
But it's become less. I mean, for example, there are people implementing it and people observing it. And if people learn that it is important to observe these, then it will become a common trend among people.
It has become less. Take a trip up north and you will see that it's still the same. The amount of fields that are being burned, slashed and burned, are still pretty much the same.
And the government should do something to stop this.
That's why you're telling me it's okay because they're setting up institutions.
because-
It's been there for years,
because some
but nothing
people-
has been done.
Because some people are doing this, it means that we should just stop harvesting sugarcane completely.
No,
Is that
but
what
in
you're
the
saying?
process of destroying the environment, maybe we should consider alternatives that do
Like
not
what
do not go for the sacrificing of the environment in the process.
Destroying the environment is beyond economic development control. First of all, because of the destruction of the environment is caused by the minds of those people who are really so with the concentration on their profit.
Yeah.
Let me, okay, you have something to say.
You said that it's beyond the government's control. Knowing
It's
that...
beyond economic development
Okay, it's
control.
beyond the
Finish.
economic development control. Knowing that, shouldn't the environment by now already consider environmental protectionism, since in the first place, it's not by making use of the environment?
I didn't actually really understand that.
Okay, I was saying that the illegal actions done outside the control of the economic development are already present and are at growing rates. So knowing all that, shouldn't environmental protection be considered by the economy?
Well, the mention of the word illegal. Illegal, again, is for profit.
But you said it was present. It is present, right? You agree
Yes,
that it's
it is.
present. And
And it should
knowing
be
that, yes, that's why the environment should consider the importance of the environment. Therefore,
The environment should consider the importance of environment.
the economy should consider the importance of the environment.
I have a question for anyone may answer this. Is there a way to strike a happy balance between your opposing positions? I gather from the affirmative side, for example, that you are willing to, quote-unquote, destroy the environment only to a certain extent, as long as it is compatible with the good of the common good.
Yes,
And beyond that, you will not go.
Of course.
Okay?
We
So,
don't want to be extinct as humans.
what is your response to that to their position?
But
They're
the-
willing to recognize limits.
But the proposition does not state any limit. It just says give way. It does not say give way up to the point where it is acceptable. Give way up to the point where it does not hurt. Give way up to the point where it does not extinct. See? It is not stated in the proposition where the limits
but
are.
it says that the environment is giving way.
Okay. In that case, as far as your reading of the proposition is concerned, would you be open to the possibility that it is allowable for the environment to give way to a certain extent for the sake of
There should be an equal distribution of priority, meaning the economy should not be prioritized more than the environment, since basically they share the mutual path.
but will that allow for a certain extent of damage to the environment? That kind of an answer.
The damage that's actually
Minimal damage.
minimal.
That is mitigated and is being counteracted by well, systems that try to minimize the effects.
Minimal damage, nevertheless.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is, you're open to that. You would consider that as
Up
compatible
to the
with
point
your
where
position.
it doesn't harm the population.
And what will be your response to that?
We said we are for economic development up to the point that it does not harm the population. But the point is, while you're getting from the environment, while you're getting something from it, it's giving way.
Now,
No matter how minimal.
considering your answers, would you say that you are somehow reaching a point of reconciliation?
Well, if she says that it's give way, well, we cannot deny the fact that the economic development depends on the environment. And if you say it does not give way, then that's not possible. I mean, if by setting a definition on that, we're not having a debate at all.
Okay. So in other words, you read the proposition as requiring absolute positions on...
Yeah, destroying environment.
So what would be your response once again to the position of the affirmative that they're willing to recognize limits with respect to your reading of the proposition?
Are you asking?
You and anyone can respond.
What? I didn't really understand.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Well, I understand it from Chino that you read the proposition as requiring the debaters to adopt an absolutist
Yes,
stance.
because if not, then we would be somewhere like meeting in the middle, and why are we debating in the first place?
Okay.
Well, if we meet, if we come to an absolute stand, then they should come to an absolute stand as well.
Okay, so can we proceed from there?
Okay, then
Like
we should
what
take
absolute
So,
stand?
that's a good question.
The absolute stand would be give way. We understand it as sacrifice, destroy, not just destroy up to the point where it's okay, or destroy up to the point where it doesn't hurt, but destroy, give way. I mean,
Yes, but in one way
Perhaps
or
the
another,
environment.
environment really has to give way to economic development.
Yes.
Yes,
Because
we do
aren't
that
you
now.
aware that when we develop something in one place, something really has to give way? This is because we are not God. We cannot create something out of
yeah, but
nothing.
that
And
is
wait,
if your understanding give way is like that, because we're
Chino.
understanding it as sacrificing, as destroying.
So if you're not for giving way, then it means that you're saying that we should never use the environment for economic development.
Yes. What will we just do? Look at it?
Yeah. Look at it. Lick
Well,
the
no, you
trees.
could. Well, if it's not for giving way, if our definition of giving way is sacrificing, then we are okay for
Does-
sustainable development because there is mitigation.
For example, the ozone layer already has 10.6 square miles hole in California, and that means we are susceptible to UV rays. And also, the global warming consequences. What are the countries that will flood? New York, Miami, Netherlands. Have we no concern for these countries at all?
The point is, you saying giving way, no matter how minimal it is, it's still giving way.
How would you then define the term giving way? You mentioned the word sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Destruction. See, that's where the problem is. I mean, attorney, that the definition of the terms here is not clear because
Yes.
each one has a different interpretation. And we have research based on our own interpretation. And their own interpretation is that it should not give way at all. And ours is that it should be completely destroyed, see? That's
So
what-
how would you defend the reasonableness of your interpretation?
Well, basically that give way. I mean, if you say that it should not give way at all, then be realistic. How can something not give way? Because, as you said, economic development is within the environment. So for something to come out, as you said, something has to come out, can't come out of nothing. So if they
Yes.
determine it from the point of view that nothing should give way, then it will be
this shouldn't-
impossible to defend.
So you are saying that the definition of giving way should be qualified according to
Yes.
your
Yes.
understanding. And
Based on the
the,
law of physics, you cannot, I mean, the give way term, if they based upon them, does not agree with the law of physics.
okay, so this is an interesting thing we have here. Chino is insisting that the definition of giving way should be qualified, and he believes that his qualification is reasonable. I understand from you that the word giving way should be understood as sacrifice or complete destruction. How would you respond to his
Our
qualification?
response is, the phrase says giving way for economic development, right? So technically, when you're not giving way for something for the production and consumption of people, then it's not giving way for economic development. Say it's like, no matter how minimal it is still giving way. But this minimal giving way, for example, if you're going to stop giving way, the environment will stop giving way to economic development. You
But
can
I
still-
understand from Chino that he excludes minimal damage from the definition of giving way. He will apply the words giving way only to serious.
Mr. Moderator, I
Yes.
would like to add. How can a minimal usage actually lead to economic development? I mean, what are the qualifications for economic
just
development?
stating
You
that no
said
matter how
that
minimal
it is for
it
the
is.
common good. So how can a minimal usage of the environment be for the common good if it's not even enough to fit, for example, one city?
But we're just showing how minimal it is still giving way. And the word giving.
But if
no matter
you're
how
stating
small.
your ideas, that would just be optimism, and realistically, it's very opposing.
Mr. Moderator, because if we base it upon their definition of giving way, then it's not defensible, it's not debatable anymore because it doesn't even apply to the law of physics. Yeah, obviously when you gauge something, something has to give way. And if you develop, something will have to give way eventually. And if we base it upon their definition, then there's nothing to defend.
Okay, in that case, let's hear also from you, Kia. Is there a way out of this impasse? There is now a conflict of interpretations. Here we have a more literal, strict interpretation, so to speak. Giving way is giving way, no
Yes.
matter how minimal it is. Your position is, for purposes of this debate, the giving way should be qualified.
Taking it into context with the proposition and reality as well.
Strict interpretation versus contextual interpretation.
Realistic.
So, what would be your response?
You're defining giving way as the way we define it in physics. Why? Is it only physics that can define give way?
But we are defining it upon what? Because be realistic. How can something not give way if something is graded? How are we supposed to defend if you're telling us that nothing can give way? Then the fact of law is when you take something, something will give way. It opposes the law of nature.
That's why even just minimal, if it's already given
That's
way.
the point
something
that I'm
and
telling you, that the definition that you're taking and the definition that we interpret it as are not seeing eye to eye.
Okay, in that case, let's talk about, let's abandon theory for the meantime, and let's talk about concrete examples, so we will regain our bearings. Anyone here can
They
come
mean
up?
that giving way to the point, well,
Concrete examples,
just a minimal. Water pollution. Estimates suggest that nearly
You just said
1.5
no
million
matter
people
how minimal
worldwide
they
lack
are.
safe drinking water, and that at least 5 million deaths per year can be attributed to waterborne diseases. The sources of water pollution comes from
Okay, look at now today, we have distilled water, mineral water, purified water. That's
imagine that. Water is supposed to be
water,
free.
our
Why should
water
you-
reserves
why should you
already
spend for it?
Excuse me, let's have one speaker time. Briefly, what are you saying before she responds?
that we have already purified water, distilled water, because our water resources actually have been polluted.
So you
and it
mean-
is the result of economic development. For the better living of the people, we have those purified water to provide us potable, safe drinking water.
Imagine
that's
water was supposed to be free, but now water is bottled and for sale. Imagine if we continue to sacrifice the environment. 110 years from now, the salary that we earn through economic development will only be enough to provide us with gas masks, expensive waters. What,
Okay, let's go back to the
hospitalizations?
time when water used to be free, like what you're saying. There's such thing as comparative advantage. What if you lived in the Middle East? There's no water there. Because of distilling water and selling them, these people get to have water.
Well, how about us? We sacrifice our water resources. And now we buy them more expensive than other countries do.
We buy them. They are for sale because we have jobs, we have money. What is the use of money? Of course, to buy
And
stuff.
what is the use of money if we have failing health?
What is the use of money if we have failing health? We pay to the hospital for us to get a checkup.
So
That is the-
why should we earn money when we can earn money the right way by being healthy, and that's through environmental
See,
protectionism?
because of economic development, we have been brought to a state of organization. Without economic
Organization
development,
to the
we
trust
wouldn't
of
be
our health.
organized. Like, for example, like you're saying about the water. Now, people before were nomadic. There was no organization. Why would they keep on moving? Because there was scarcity of food, and it came to such points when there were famines. It came to such point that there needed to be economic development.
But
Chair?
that
Okay.
was because they needed change. They took for granted the importance of the environment. Had those nomadic peoples recognized the importance of the environment, they could have jobs, they could have industrialized, with still having safe water.
Precisely, could you qualify even further? Specifically, what do you have in mind when you say giving way? When you say that the entitlement has to give way, what is the extent of damage which will qualify as?
Well, because from my understanding, since she said giving way is anything that gives, but in my opinion, when you promote sustainable development, obviously there is giving way, right? But when there are mitigation procedures and protection procedures afforded to the environmental losses, it's no longer giving way because you're also giving equal importance to the environment.
Okay, thank you for that very interesting exchange of ideas. And now I will have to turn you over again to Attorney Round.
Yes, that was indeed interesting. But of course, we must first introduce our board of judges. 4 are watching this debate live on their TV screens and 1 is on the studio. And after my introduction, I will bring you back to Attorney Cortez and maybe to allow our debaters to make their final concluding arguments. First, let me introduce to you our first judge is on the live audience in the studio. He is a board member of the board of Sunshine Boys that operates Sunshine Channel. He is a graduate of Bachelor of Laws, Ateneo de Manila University. He is a past president of Rotary Club of Bacolod, Mother Club. He is a partner of the law office Mirano, and Mirano. And he is currently the president of Integrated Bar of the Philippines Negros Chapter. He is none other than Attorney William N. Mirano. Our next judge is a holder of Master of Arts, major in education, a major in English from University of Negros Occidental, Recoletos. She is a national champion oratorical speaking contest during her college days. She is currently the head of the English department of UNOR. She is a speechwriter, trainer, and lecturer on phonetics, and she has been a professor of argumentation and debate for over 2 decades. Of course, she was also my teacher in argumentation and debate during my college days. She is none other than Miss Chona Mascodiana. Our third judge is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Management in Ateneo de Manila University. He is also a graduate of Bachelor of Laws from University of the Philippines. He is a former councilor of the City of Bacolod and is a human rights advocate. We have Attorney Archie Baribar. Our fourth judge is a graduate of Bachelor of Business Administration from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, Canada. He is currently the president of the Bacolod Filipino-Chinese Junior Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a member of the First Farmers Toastmasters Club, and is the proprietor and manager of IEC Computers. And our last, and of course definitely not the least, he is a graduate of Juris Doctor from Ateneo de Manila University in 1992. He took the bar examinations in the same year and placed number 1 in what is considered to be one of the toughest bar exams of the Philippine Supreme Court. He is also a former associate or junior associate of Accra Law Offices, a former lawyer of Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority or SBMA, and is currently the partner of Torres & C Law Offices. He is none other than Attorney Jaime C. Jr. Now, let me turn you back to Attorney Dennis Cortez to allow our debaters to make their concluding or final arguments.
To wrap up tonight's grand finals, we will now have the final words from our debaters. Okay, we can start.
Economic development provides a better quality of life for the common good. The only way to satisfy the basic needs of the people is to continue developing the economy. It will not be able to provide these if it does not harness something from the environment.
In one way or another, environment really gives way to economic development because in the first place, I won't be wearing a shirt made of cotton if it was not for economic development. And I am not willing to wear leaves in the future if you will stop economic development and preserve the environment.
But based on the misinterpretations of each side, I guess that they're willing to allow it to a certain extent. We're willing to allow it to a certain extent, so I have nothing more to say.
To safeguard the healthful environment that is essential to life, humans must learn that Earth does not have infinite resources. Therefore, the environment should not give way to economic development.
And that wraps up tonight's debate.
Okay, a round of applause for our debaters. So that concludes the idebate challenge grand finals. Well, people of Bacolod and Negros Occidental, we have now come to what you have been waiting for, the announcement of the winners and the awarding ceremony of idebate challenge 2006. We will be giving one team award for the best debating team, and we will be giving two individual awards, one for the best debater and one for the best speaker. But before that, let me first acknowledge the presence of our members of the faculty and the coaches of the both contending teams for tonight. Let me start with University of St. LaSalle. They are accompanied by Brother Mandy Duhunco, FSC. Brother Mandy, Mrs. Cristina Navarro, Mr. Jonathan Davila, Mr. Raymond Banatikla, and of course their coach is Miss Lelani Reforma. And for St. Scholastica's Academy, may I acknowledge the presence of Sister Alexis Lamarosa, the High School Discipline Officer, Mrs. Alexa Santiago, the Academic Coordinator, Miss Marivic Canada, the Student Affairs Coordinator, Miss Jonalyn Asoy, the English-Filipino Coordinator, Mrs. Josephine Nagagor, the Math Area Coordinator, Mrs. Fresel Doromal, Miss Estelle Apelio, Mrs. Ramona Hilton, and Miss Charity Gamboa. And now let me first acknowledge and award our certificate of appreciation to our moderator. He has been my teammate during our college days, and he won as Best Debater and Best Speaker in the national rounds of the 1991 PRISA Academic Contest Debate, Attorney Dennis Cortez. And of course, the certificate reads, Certificate of Appreciation to Attorney Dennis Cortez for his invaluable participation as moderator of idebate Challenge 2006 Grand Finals. And now, let me, of course, this show will not materialize without the support of our sponsors. And before I acknowledge our sponsors, let me first acknowledge the support, the hard work, and the collaboration of the team of Gary Lake Lisa. Okay, may we call on our director, Gary Lake Lisa. If you have seen the techie presentation and editing of idebate, it's not possible without this person, Gary Lake Lisa, and his team, Leo Vision, and we would like to give him the certificate of appreciation, and it reads, Certificate of Appreciation to Gary Lake M. Lisa and the Leo Vision team for their invaluable support, assistance, and collaboration to make idebate Challenge one of Bacolod City's most successful shows on cable television. Now, let me also acknowledge the support of three of our major sponsors who have been with idebate since its first showing. Now, may I acknowledge the invaluable support of Mr. Jose Nelson Co. of Golden Sun Finance Corporation, of Robin Hood Corporation, and of course, Rebisco. Let me also acknowledge many of our sponsors. We have Yeah, we have Amigo Terrace Hotel. We have Negros Navigation. We have Killer B. We have Pacific Ads. We have the IEC computers. And of course, we have Bayansa Bacolod. And of course, a lot more. If I forgotten something, I will acknowledge you later. But now, I will not delay this. First, I would like to award and announce the winner for the best speaker. People of Bacolod, our best speaker is, okay, debaters hold your breath. Our best speaker is none other than Miss Anne-Marie Lacson of St. Scholastica's Academy. May I request Attorney Cortez to... Okay, thank you very much. Let me call on Attorney Mirano to assist us in the awarding. Okay. Okay now, so let's go on with the awarding of the best debater. Our best debater for tonight, it's actually a split decision, but nevertheless, she got the most number of votes. She's none other than Miss Anne-Marie Lacson. Let me also acknowledge our other sponsors. We have Valacard Transit of Ceres Liner. We have CFA Credit Corporation. We have 5-Star Frozen Food Corporation. And of course, we have Michelle Gasataya for the trophies. And of course, we have IEC Computers for some of the gifts to our debaters tonight. And may I especially acknowledge and thank, can we focus this, Miss Emily Go for her gift, but this is only for me. Okay. Thank you very much, Emily. Emily Go Villanueva of IEC Computers. And now, the champion, the grand champion of idebate Challenge 2006, it goes to the affirmative side, St. Scholastica's Academy. Okay, before that, let me first call on the debaters of the affirmative, negative side, the University of St. LaSalle. Okay, first let me call on Jovan. Jovan, we will now be awarding the finalist trophies to our runner-up team. First, we have Miss Jovan Tamparon of University of St. LaSalle. Let me call on Yones Irene De Castro. Thank you very much, Yones. And of course, Mr. Chino Lao. And let me now call on the coach of University of St. LaSalle to receive the finalist and runner-up trophy for the University of St. LaSalle. Thank you very much, Miss Lelani Reforma. Thank you. And of course now, the champion team. First, let me call on the third member of the team, Miss Victoria Dreyfus. Victoria saw action during our semi-final round. Congratulations. And of course, Miss Kia Gargantiel. Congratulations. And of course, Anne-Marie Lacson. Okay, we will be. We also have some gifts to our. This is for the University of St. LaSalle. We have bags here from Epson and IEC Computers. Okay. Thank you very much. And of course, we have traveling bags. These are limited edition Canon Star Wars Episode 3 for the Saints Co debaters. They are a bit heavy. Thank you. And of course, our best debating team, they also won free accommodation from Amigo Terrace Hotel in Iloilo. And of course, our best debater and best speaker also won gifts from round-trip tickets from Negros Navigation. And now may I now call on the coach of St. Scholastica's Academy, Miss Connie Beleza, to receive the idebate Challenge 2006 trophy for St. Scholastica's Academy, the first Grand Debate champion of idebate Challenge 2006. May we also call on the sisters of St. Scholastica's Academy? Okay. Sister, give us a reaction.
I'm speechless, you know. It's hard to school if you're speechless.
Okay, yes, our debaters have already done much of the talking and speaking. Now, so in behalf of the idebate team and Leo Vision and all the sponsors who have supported idebate Challenge 2006, I would like to invite you for a bigger and a more explosive idebate next year, the idebate Challenge 2007. See you all, people of Bacolod and Negros Occidental.